Cell phone video capturing the fear felt by students during a deadly school shooting in Georgia today. The heartache felt by so many people, including first responders.
I want to make it very clear that hate will not prevail in this county. I want that to be very clear and known. Love will prevail over what happened today.
Tonight, 2 students and 2 teachers are dead and at least 9 other people injured after that shooting in Winder, Georgia, just east of Atlanta. And this tragedy has prompted anger and sadness across the country and here in the West. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to West Coast Wrap. I'm Alex Savage. Investigators now say that 14-year-old shooter will be charged as an adult. And a short time ago, authorities gave an update.
Want to bring note to one very special thing that we do not need to forget about here is we have heroes in our midst. We've talked about our law enforcement personnel, our fire, our EMS. Those that are deceased are heroes in my book. Those that are in the hospital recovering right now are heroes in my book. But also the heroes that we need to remember is our faculty and staff here at this school. They acted admirably. They were heroes in the actions that they took. The protocols at this school and this system activated today prevented this from being a much larger tragedy than what we had here today.
And here's more of what we're learning about what unfolded at Appalachia High School today. Witnesses say a student left class this morning and then returned with a gun and started firing. Investigators say 2 school resource officers confronted the shooter within minutes and ultimately he surrendered. The suspect has been identified as 14-year-old Colt Gray. He's being charged as an adult with murder. Both students who died were 14 years old. As we mentioned earlier, 2 teachers were also killed in the gunfire, and 8 other students and 1 teacher were taken to hospitals with injuries. Crowds gathered outside of the school tonight to remember the lives that were lost, and people have been sharing stories of what they have been through all throughout the day.
I heard the sirens and everything, and towards the end of it, I heard screaming. And they unlocked my door and they came in with the flashlight and the guns and we had to have our hands up and stuff. And then that's when they took us outside.
The teenage suspect in this case was interviewed by the FBI back in May of last year after agents received anonymous tips about online threats to commit an unspecified school shooting. He and his father told investigators there were hunting guns in their home, but the teen did not have unsupervised access to them. The White House reacted to today's shooting, calling on Congress to take steps to curb gun violence.
We continue to call on Congress to do something, We need universal background checks. We need ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, require safe storage of firearms, invest in violence prevention programs, and pass a national red flag law. Enough is enough.
Both major presidential campaigns are also calling attention to this tragedy. Former President Trump reacted with a post on social media. He wrote, quote, "Our hearts are with the victims and loved ones of those affected by the tragic event in Winder, Georgia. These cherished children were taken from us far too soon by a sick and deranged monster." Vice President Harris addressed the tragedy during a campaign stop in New Hampshire this afternoon. She called it senseless.
It's just outrageous that every day in our country, in the United States of America, that parents have to send their children to school worried about whether or not their child will come home alive. It's senseless. It is. We've got to stop it. And we have to end this epidemic of gun violence in our country once and for all. You know, it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way.
The vice president's running mate, Governor Tim Walz, also discussed the shooting with voters on the campaign trail today during a stop in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. He said more work needs to be done to help prevent tragedies like this.
It's a situation that's all too common, and our hearts are out there right now, but our work needs to do to prevent these in the future.
And you can find updates on today's deadly shooting in Georgia at our website, westcoastwrap.com. Our online coverage includes details of other mass killings that have happened here in the U.S. so far this year. A man suspected in a string of random shootings along Interstate 5 in Washington refused to show up in court today. Fox 13's A.J. Janavel has new details on this case tonight and tells us what the judge had to say.
Fox 13 News did some digging and found out that this suspect has no known criminal record, which leads to a very big question. What led up to this shooting?
Walking, stop! Get down to your knees!
Unknown vehicle shot in a white Tesla.
Going to be transporting one with a gunshot wound.
Wife was struck by debris and bleeding.
This meets the definition of an active shooter and a mass shooting event.
Probable cause documents I obtained say the suspect in this shooting,
keep walking, keep walking,
seen here in body camera footage, wore a ski mask during his alleged shooting spree and targeted a car with children inside. The total number of people hurt is now up from 5 to 6. 2 victims in Pierce County, 4 victims in King County, and 8 total cars hit, investigators tell me.
If you make a finding of probable cause, 5 counts of assault in the first degree with a deadly weapon.
Lay all the way down on the ground.
A chaotic and frightening night. The suspect is accused of multiple randomly targeted shootings separated by just a few minutes. According to court documents, the 44-year-old alleged mass shooter confessed to police, stating he believed people were after him, trying to box him in on the road. Documents also say the suspect called police the day before the mass shooting, asking for help, then took matters into his own hands when no one responded. In court Wednesday, the suspect did not show up. The defense told the court they have concerns regarding the suspect's mental health. The judge ruled to keep the 44-year-old alleged shooter locked up.
I do find the likelihood of victim violent action fees. I will set bail in the amount of $1 million.
And a terrible story, but there is some good news that I learned today. At least 2 of the victims involved in the shooting are doing much better. That's according to Seattle hospital officials. They tell me 1 has been released from the hospital and 1 is now in satisfactory condition. Officials tell me that that suspect is expected to appear in court again tomorrow. You can count on continued coverage. Reporting here in Seattle, I'm A.J. Janavel, Fox 13 News.
The teenager accused of shooting 49ers wide receiver Ricky Pearsall made his first court appearance this afternoon for arraignment. The suspect's parents were also inside the San Francisco courtroom. Cameras were not allowed inside. The 17-year-old is charged with 3 felonies, attempted murder, assault with a semi-automatic firearm, and attempted second-degree robbery. He did not enter a plea. His lawyer says he hopes the district attorney's office does not ask to have the case moved out of juvenile court to charge the teen as an adult.
I think that my client certainly should be treated as a juvenile. He is a juvenile. It's very rare for transfer to occur. And even though this is obviously a serious case, a shooting, in the normal course of events, this would not warrant transfer, and I hope it doesn't in this case.
The judge ordered the suspect to be held at juvenile hall and to return to court on September 10th. Well, the heat is on all across the West. Here is a live look tonight at downtown Phoenix, where the temperatures soared well beyond 100 degrees today. The excessive heat warning in this area will last all the way through Friday. Rising temperatures posing a challenge for crews fighting wildfires across the West. In Oregon, the Rail Ridge fire is growing about 120 miles east of Bend. Evacuations are underway for all of Aldrich Mountain. The fire started with a lightning strike on Monday, and it's burned more than 61,000 acres with no containment tonight. In Wyoming, emergency crews ordered new evacuations near the Fish Creek fire today. This is burning about 60 miles northeast of Jackson. Today's new evacuations are near Highway 26, where flames have been spotted. The fire also started with a lightning strike back on August 16th. Nearly 18,000 acres have burned, and the fire is 54% contained. A wildfire in California's Tahoe National Forest has grown more than 1,000 acres just since last night. The Bear Fire is burning near about 300 homes in the community of Sierra Brooks. Evacuation orders and warnings are in effect here. This fire has burned more than 3,200 acres since it started on Monday, and there is no containment tonight. The cause of the fire is unclear. And all those wildfires across the West are sending up so much smoke, it's being picked up on satellites. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration says these images were captured yesterday when smoke got wrapped up in an area of low pressure over the Pacific Northwest. For more, let's bring in KTVU meteorologist Mark Tamayo, who is tracking the movement of all of that smoke across the West and, of course, Mark, the extreme heat.
Yeah, of course, the heat continues to be a big factor of the forecast. Also checking out the smoke forecast model. This is primarily in the upper levels, but as you can see here, the concentration's really focused in portions of Oregon, drifted into parts of Washington. So that's the forecast for tomorrow. As you can see, the potential for some of the wildfire smoke spreading across parts of the West. As far as the heat, take a look. As you can see, 116 degrees in Palm Springs, 107 in Las Vegas, Sacramento, California, 104, even Portland, Oregon warming up into the upper 80s. So as you can see, all the areas in red, excessive heat warnings, all the areas in yellow, we do have heat advisories, and that does include parts of the Pacific Northwest as well. Showing you this, as you can see, in terms of the active weather, in terms of showers and thunderstorms, will have to come in closer to Colorado. You can see over the past few hours the clouds and the rain showers picking up. But this was Seattle today. Some sunshine, temperatures in the upper 70s this afternoon. So mostly sunny skies out there. In the San Francisco Bay Area, we had temperatures in the upper 60s. Some fog out toward the coast, and then some hot temperatures inland with the warmest locations of the Bay Area right around 100. And then, as you can see in Phoenix, of course, triple digits once again. That's been the constant, 111 degrees this afternoon. Phoenix has cooled off to 107. Reno, Nevada, checking in the upper 80s at 87. Portland still a warm 89 degrees. As we check out the forecast for tomorrow, heat advisories posted up in the Seattle area. It's a warm day with temperatures in the 80s. Warm to hot, at least warm for San Francisco. Temperatures approaching the lower 70s. Hot for the locations inland. Looks like the showers once again. The best chance will be out toward the Denver area. And look at Los Angeles. They're heating up as well, right around 100 degrees tomorrow afternoon. Here's kind of a breakdown up and down the west coast from Washington toward California, Southern California, and out toward Arizona, with Scottsdale a forecast high of 113 degrees. So in terms of the active weather, once again, as you can see, looking out toward the cloud cover and the rainfall focused out toward Colorado and New Mexico for tomorrow. And over the next 3 days, we are definitely heating up in Seattle, close to 90 degrees for tomorrow, mostly in the 80s for a good portion of the day. In the Bay Area for San Francisco in the 70s. Look at Los Angeles. We're talking about triple digits. So we have the hot temperatures focused down toward Los Angeles and, of course, out toward Phoenix as well. And then in the Denver area, temperatures in the 70s and 80s. So we continue to talk about the heat as we do move into September, Alex.
All right, hopefully a break coming soon. Yeah. Mark, thank you. Decades on the books, today stricken down. Coming up tonight, why a judge says Alaska's abortion law is unconstitutional. Plus, find out what could have actor Alec Baldwin once again fighting charges tied to that shooting on a movie set. Today, an Alaska judge struck down a decades-old law that only allowed licensed doctors to perform abortions in the state. The decision stems from a 2019 lawsuit by Planned Parenthood that argued there was no medical justification for that restriction. According to that suit, advanced practice registered nurses and physicians' assistants should be allowed to perform abortions, especially since those providers help to fill a void in the largely rural state of Alaska. A man serving a 20-year prison sentence in New Jersey made it onto Alaska's ballot for the state's lone House seat. Eric Hafner was convicted in 2022 of threatening to kill judges, police officers, and others. He originally came in 6th place in a ranked choice primary, which allows the top 4 vote getters to move on to the general election. But 2 candidates withdrew, so Hafner made it onto the ballot with just 0.43% of the vote. There's no law in Alaska blocking felons from running for office. However, state law does require its representatives to live in the state. There are no federal prisons in Alaska, so even if Hafner won, he likely wouldn't be allowed to hold office. A New Mexico prosecutor is asking for charges against actor Alec Baldwin to be reinstated in the shooting death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on a movie set. Prosecutor Carrie Morrissey says the facts leading to the dismissal of the charges were insufficient. In July, a judge dismissed involuntary manslaughter charges against Baldwin on the basis that police withheld evidence. Police received live ammo with a tip that it could have something to do with the shooting, but deemed it unrelated. Baldwin's lawyers argued the information was buried on purpose and filed to dismiss. Authorities never determined who brought that ammo that killed Hutchins. We're learning more tonight about a possible defense for the so-called ketamine queen in the death of Matthew Perry. Jasveen Sanya is facing charges of conspiracy to distribute ketamine in connection with the actor's death. A trial date has been set for March. Her defense attorney, Mark Garrigo, said in an interview that there is no connection between Perry and Sanya. However, TMZ points out there is at least one link between the two.
They were in rehab at the same time at one of these, high-end, these fancy rehab facilities in the LA area. So if they were in at the same time and they didn't know each other, that would seem to be very odd and unlikely.
Sanya remains in federal custody right now. She's facing life in prison if convicted on the charges against her. A man has been arrested accused of shooting and wounding 2 Phoenix police officers. This all happened last night near the downtown area. Police say 41-year-old Saul Ball is accused of firing at those 2 officers after they caught him trying to run from an attempted car break-in. Both officers were hospitalized, one of them listed in critical condition at last check. Ball is now booked on several charges, including attempted murder.
Are committed to completing a thorough investigation and holding all those accountable for this heinous act.
Just days ago, a resident who lives near where this shooting happened wrote a letter to the Phoenix City Council concerned about violence in that neighborhood. Jurors in a Las Vegas murder trial that got national attention are now starting to come forward. Last week, the jury convicted former Clark County Public Administrator Robert Tellez of killing an investigative reporter. Las Vegas Review-Journal reporter Jeff Garriman wrote stories that were critical of Tellez in 2022. Months after those stories were published, Tellez lost his bid for re-election. Fox 5's Victoria Saha sat down with the jury foreman in the case to get some insight on how those jurors reached their guilty verdict.
When he took the stand, did you buy any of his story?
When he did his narrative testimony, that's when he just started poking holes in the cross, and we're just like, well, it did a lot more harm than good. I asked the question in the court about the affair between him and Roberta.
That was you?
I took a couple times to write it down because I wanted to write it down and, make it as respectful as I could.
Why was that question so important to you to ask when his wife found out about the affair, and how did she find out?
To me, it almost seemed like that could have been almost the real verdict behind, or the motive behind everything. When he didn't answer it fully, kind of danced around like, yeah, she found out, but we're in a better place now. I was like, well, that wasn't my question.
His defense coming in just months before, do you think they did their best?
The fact that he was able to create such a reasonable doubt among the juries without the narrative testimony being attached to it, I thought that was actually he had a very good defense attorney for his case.
What can you tell us that went into, the deliberation room, what was going through your head as you had to make this really hard decision?
Try to view this as a point from innocence, and then make our decisions as we see the evidence. And yeah, as more evidence and stuff came out, that's when it was harder to keep in the innocence category.
We heard from Garriman's family, and then we heard from Tellez's family. You have 2 different families, 2 different heartbreaks.
We realized at that point it was hard on both sides for very different reasons. We had a lot of people who were really stuck on, we wanted to do the 50 to 20 years because they want to, even at 90, they thought, or if he does do the full term, he's going to be like 90 some years old. His life's pretty much already over, is what they were kind of leaning on in their minds. But that's when we kind of also had a lot of people on the other end who wanted life without parole. And a lot of them, their main reasoning was the Garriman family testimony. Ultimately, I do feel if he wants to rejoin society and become a citizen and a father again, he's really got to earn it.
Victoria Saha, Fox 5 News, local Las Vegas.
And again, during the penalty phase of that trial, the jury ultimately decided on a sentence of life with the eligibility of parole after 20 years. Coming up tonight here on West Coast Wrap, collecting a paycheck before you're even hired. Tonight, how this approach by one ambulance company in the Pacific Northwest is helping them to address a shortage of paramedics. Also, the operators of Seattle-based Nordstrom have a new plan they believe will take them into the future. We'll break down their vision for the retailer. An ambulance company in the Pacific Northwest is hoping a new strategy will convince more people to become paramedics. Fox 12's Spencer Schott shows us how they're paying people just to get trained.
In the next 2 weeks, AMR will be starting a new EMT program that will essentially be paying students to go to class. Now, this is an approach that's worked well for them in other markets like Seattle, but it's a new approach here in Oregon.
Originally, we were just going to pay people to go to community colleges, and then we kind of came up with the idea of hosting our own program.
The program is called Earn While You Learn.
Traditionally, when you go to school, you have to pay and work through school and then have to, balance between work and school. We're trying to create the opportunity for people to be able to be paid, basically treat school like a job.
AMR will be paying their students $19 an hour, up to 40 hours a week.
We had a lot of students that wanted to do EMT, but they couldn't have the opportunity because they can't work full-time and do the education.
It's a story Earn While You Learn co-director Jessica Seller is all too familiar with.
And the reason that I, to this day, am not a paramedic is because back in the day, I couldn't afford to go through school. So my passion for this is because I missed that opportunity.
It will be a 15-week program with virtual classes through Idaho EMS Academy and hands-on workshops right here at AMR's Clackamas location, where students will learn the skills they need to be an EMT.
Because we want success out of this, we're not going for quantity, we're going for quality.
To help Oregon increase the number of trained first responders for years to come.
This isn't a program that we plan on ending. We want to build this out sustainably, but we hope to keep this going, just like the Earn to Learns are in Seattle.
Reporting in Clackamas, Spencer Schott, Fox 12 Oregon.
Finally tonight, new indications that changes could be in store for Seattle-based retailer Nordstrom. The Nordstrom family just made a big offer to take the company private. The great-grandsons of founder John Nordstrom are working with other family members and El Puerto de Liverpool, the operator of a Mexican department store chain. The offer is about $3.8 billion in total. That's $23 per share. If a deal is reached, the family would own 50.1% of the company. El Puerto de Liverpool would own 49.9%. I beg your pardon, trying to do the math there. That does it for West Coast Wrap tonight. We appreciate you watching as always. And a reminder before we go, you can stay up to date on all the stories we're covering at our website. That's westcoastwrap.com. And stream our shows on your smart TV with the free Fox Local app. Have a great night.